Switch chat room, take one.
Do you set New Year's resolutions?
Heck no, I don't. Yes.
No, I don't.
I think every other year I set New Year's resolutions, but not a lot.
Do you set New Year's resolutions?
I do because I like new beginnings and I like the feeling of knowing that this is gonna be a better me. I say that every year, new me, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
I don't know, every time I'm like, oh, I'm gonna work out, and then I get like 1 weekend and then I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah, I think the last time I set some was like 2 years ago. Last year, I don't know, I just didn't really think about it.
I don't really do New Year's resolutions, technically, but I do goals.
Yeah.
They're like two different things, I feel like.
Yeah.
Whenever you like set goals, it's just like, you actually might do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to try to change, or should we just trust fate and destiny?
I think in certain circumstances, you should try to change, like, in order to better yourself, and it's not always, like, a bad thing if you're changing, but, like, if you're going through something, like a phase in your life, and it's just, like, it's actually, like, your own fault, like, I think then you need to change, you know?
Do you believe in second chances?
I think, yes, everyone deserves a second chance, but, like, sometimes people really do you so wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you give them a second chance for them to what? Do it again?
Yeah.
To forgive them.
I mean,
I mean, like, if you can't forgive them, like, for what they did, then that's not really giving them a second chance, you know?
I guess it depends on how you define it. Like, if you're saying it's a second chance or forgiveness, like, are you saying those are one and the same thing or different?
I think they're similar, but not the same thing.
I feel like giving someone a second chance with boundaries is like,
That's it.
I believe in that. But I don't believe in like just fully trusting someone again after they've wronged you or hurt
Right,
you.
no.
Yeah.
I feel like setting up boundaries and setting up walls and being like, I don't trust you fully, but like, we're going to give it a shot.
Yeah, I think it would definitely take, like, some time.
Yeah.
But,
And work.
yeah.
Right now. And I don't think that necessarily means eventually you don't forgive them, but I think people always talk about forgiveness. Like, it's like you give it to everybody. Yes, Jesus forgave us, so we forgive others, but sometimes it just takes time. Like, sometimes you have to work through that and work through it in yourself to be able to forgive somebody, and then maybe eventually that leads to a second chance.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can just, like, be hurt by somebody and give them a second chance right after.
Yeah, it's not just like a switch flips and you're like, okay, I forgive you. Okay, you
Right.
can have a second chance. It's like, no, like, it's going to take time and you have to work at it.
Right. I've been hurt by, like, a family member pretty bad. And, like, it was to the point where, like, I have not talked to this person in, like, 10 years. Like, it is bad. Like, anytime he's at something, I don't go. So it's just, like, and I feel like I recently actually have worked through it and, like, recently gotten closure for it. And I am able to be like, you know what, like, that was a long time ago and I do forgive you, but could I have forgiven him in those 10 years? Probably not without working through it.
There was like a lot of stuff that kind of went down, like with my dad and my stepmom a little while ago, and I kind of found it hard to like immediately forgive my dad, like, for what happened. And it took a while to like give him back or just like forgive him for the whole situation. Like, it took a long time. Because it's like, when someone does something to someone you love, or when someone does something to you, like, it hurts. And it's hard to, like, want to give them your heart back. I had to work really hard at, like, wanting to forgive him. And I mean, I eventually did, but it took, like, a lot of work. And, like, we're all better now because we forgave each other and we still love each other. But it takes time and it hurts and it's hard.
Yeah.
I used to struggle with the drug addiction, and before, like, so I was sober for like 6 months, but it was like forced sobriety, you know what I mean? Like, it was not something that I really wanted to do. It was something that, it was good for me and good for my health, but like, it was not, like, I was not passionate about being sober, and I was not passionate about staying on that route. And so I hit 6 months and then I relapsed, and I experienced transformation like I had never before. I am now, like, chasing after Jesus, chasing after good things, constantly trying to be on the right path. And it's just so crazy to me. Like, I am a completely new person and my intentions are greater. Like, I know I have a purpose and like, I'm just way better off within just waking up and realizing like I had to choose it.
When I was like 8 years old, my parents got a divorce. And it wasn't hard for me then, but I think it affects me more today than it did like when it happened. Just because like I grew up with friends that like had great families and had like parents that were still together. Like I didn't have any friends that had divorced parents. And so I was like, I felt really alone. And so when I finally kind of like started going to church and started kind of like getting the idea of who Jesus is, he put people in my life who helped me through that situation, even though they've never walked through what I walked through. Like, they brought me around their families, and some of that void that I kind of felt from my parents was filled by their parents being loving to me and helping me and taking me to church and taking me to practices and stuff like that. Like, even though my parents were always very loving to me, and like, there was just that void that was missing because they weren't together anymore. And I feel like Jesus kind of transformed my view at it. Like, it's not like, oh, I don't have this. It was like, okay, I'm missing this, but these are other things in my life that are just as great.
A transformation would be like adjusting, like my stepmom coming into my life. It was like, I don't know, it was kind of hard for me just because like my dad had dated like a few other girls like before her, but it was like never serious, so it never really got to me. And they were always like, since they wanted to have that serious relationship, they were always like super sweet and not like themselves all the time. Yeah. And with her, she like was moving in and like doing all these things. And I don't know, like for a really long time, me and her just like did not get along like at all. And I couldn't bond with her or anything. And it just like almost felt like he was trying to replace my mom. I don't know. Once I realized that like, that's not what she was trying to do. She was like, she's just been there for me for so long and like has grown with me as I was growing, like through middle school and junior high and like going through all these changes. It was just hard to deal with it, like without my biological mom.
Yeah.
As followers of Jesus, the Holy Spirit works in us to change us. But what do you think our responsibility is?
I think finding your purpose and how like God is going to use you. I think that's like our responsibility is like, obviously there's help, but like, you know what I mean? Like, but just obeying that and like knowing what you're here to do.
Probably just to actually put in the effort to change for him or because of him. Because it goes both ways, like for the relationship that you have with him, you know?
What's something that you learned from this conversation?
I think that I learned that being transformed like takes work. You know what I mean? You can say that you're transformed, you can maybe even be transformed by God, but like it takes your work, like your commitment, every day waking up and choosing the right things and following Jesus to truly be transformed.
Literally every day we can wake up and make the decision to like be better and do better or to not. And so it's important as Christ followers that like when we wake up, we choose to love and to be better to bring people to him, you know.